guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is just gonna be a short little my top 5 not well-known fantasy recommendations video. That's super lengthy and I'm gonna change the title later. But for now, the first on the list is The Belgariad by David Eddings. This is a very well-known series in the fantasy community, so if you've been reading fantasy for a while, I'm sure you've heard of it. However, if you're new to the genre, or if you've just only been reading fantasy recently or whatever, this is a staple to fantasy readers. David Eddings, and he occasionally writes with his, I believe it's his wife, Lee Eddings, is an amazing author. The Belgariad and the entire world crafted around the Belgariad, because there's multiple series in it, is vast. It's very, very long. There's very many books in all of these series, but the Belgariad specifically, I believe, can be divided up into 6 books. 6 books. This is volume 1, which contains the first 3. You pretty much follow the main character, Geryon, who is the embodiment of the Chosen One trope. And there's a couple of different books within this series that talk about how they've gotten to this point that they're in when the Belgariad begins. But Geryon is very much the Chosen One, and you follow him throughout Volume 1 and Volume 2, all 6 books, as he's trying to defeat evil. It's been a long time since I've read these, but they're awesome, they're incredible, they're high fantasy for sure. There's characters that you're gonna absolutely fall in love with. They're amazing. I highly recommend them. The first one that I actually read in the entire Belgariad world was actually Polguera the Sorceress. I've had this copy of this book probably since the 3rd grade. It is very well loved by me. I'm pretty sure, yeah, there's still some dog-eared pages in here. I used to be a page dog-earer. I read this over and over so many times because this is entirely about Geryon's aunt Polguera, and it just talks about her. It came out after the Belgariad did as a spin-off, and it is just about Polguera's life from the time that she was born all the way up to, I believe, the beginning of the events of the Belgariad. Maybe they kind of intercept time-wise. But this is what caused me to fall in love with the world, and this is what caused me to love the world to this day. So I think it's a pretty good entry point into the series. It's kind of up to you as to whether you'd want to start with the actual Belgariad, or there's another one called Belgarion the Sorcerer, which is about Polguera's father. They're both really great. The entire series is really great. I cannot recommend them enough. The next series on my list is Chronicles of Blood and Stone by Robert Newcomb. This first book, The Fifth Sorceress in particular, follows Prince Tristan. He is about to be crowned the new king of, I believe it's Eutracia is how you pronounce it, but I'm not 100% sure. However, his coronation is wrecked completely when the sorceresses that have been exiled in the history of this kingdom, attack and pretty much murder everyone that he has ever loved, for the most part. That's not a spoiler, it happens right in the beginning, and you kind of follow him as he tries to figure out how to get revenge and save his kingdom, and it is incredible. I know that there's a spin-off series of this. I don't know anything about it, really. I own one of the books somewhere, but I haven't started it yet. But the first trilogy, The Chronicles of Blood and Stone, is absolutely amazing. When I was in high school, I had a tradition where I would reread them once a year, and they were very beloved to me at the time, and they still hold a special place in my heart. The next book or series on my list is Song in the Silence by Elizabeth Kerner. I don't think I've heard very many people talk about this. I know it's on the older side of fantasy because I was reading it when I was in elementary and middle school. It is adult fantasy, it is high fantasy, and you follow the character Lonin Kylar, who has an abusive family, and all she wants to do is go on adventures, and eventually, I don't remember exactly what the inciting incident is, but she does leave her abusive family, and she goes to seek the Isle of Dragons. She kind of gets more than she bargains for, and she kind of gets embroiled in, obviously, otherwise there wouldn't be a story, but she gets embroiled in this huge political plot involving her country and the dragon community as a whole. It's fascinating. It has romance. I believe that the romance is a little bit divisive as far as the people who have read this go, but I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend the entire trilogy. The next books on my list are from the same author, but from two different series, and I really just couldn't pick between the two, and this wouldn't be one of my videos if I didn't mention Tamara Pierce. So I love everything this woman has ever written. I think that she was writing incredible fantasy with, like, female main characters before it was more common to do so. These are considered middle grade, I believe, maybe young adult. They could kind of fall into either category. So I recommend everything that Tamara Pierce has written, including Alana the Lioness and Tempest and Slaughter and her other Circle of Magic series, all of it. I love all of it. But my favorite quartet by her is the Immortals series. And this follows Dane, who discovers at a very early age that she has something called wild magic, and it means that she can talk to animals, she eventually learns how to heal animals, and she does some other things that I won't tell you about because it's kind of spoilery, but essentially she has animal magic. And in the discovery of this, she ends up becoming a vital member of the kingdom, as far as protecting it goes, because they get involved with war in a different country called Carthak, and it's just incredible. If you love animals, you will absolutely love the Immortals series. You have to read it to see for yourself. This always gets a 5 out of 5 for me from every single reread that I do, and Dane and Numair are two of my favorite characters in all of Tamara Pierce's worlds. The other one is Terrier, which follows Becca Cooper. This takes place hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe 200 years? I don't know. 200 years or so before the events of Alana the Lioness. And it follows the ancestor of George Cooper. If you've read Alana, you know who that is. He's one of the characters that is essential to that series. This follows his ancestress, Becca Cooper, who is a member of the Provost's Guard, which is kind of like the city's police force. These are all written in a journal format, and as Becca gets better at reading and writing, she improves grammatically, but you definitely see that growth from the beginning. But they are all told from her journal perspective as she solves various cases, magical and otherwise, within the kingdom. And it is awesome. I did not expect to love this trilogy as much as I did, but it rapidly became one of my favorite Tamara Pierce trilogies ever. The very last book recommendation I have for this video is the Seven Realms series by Cinda Williams-Chima. This has been popular on and off from the booktube videos that I've watched, but I wanted to add my 2 cents in because this is one of my favorite young adult fantasies in the entire world. Every time I reread them, I love them even more, and I just fall in love with the characters of Han and Risa and everybody else that is there. You follow Han, who is a street thief, and he runs a gang, and he is always involved in something that gets him into trouble. Usually he's just trying to provide for his little sister. However, one day he steals an amulet from a very powerful wizard in the kingdom, and he kind of falls on the wrong side of some very powerful people. So you follow his story, and you also follow the story of Princess Risa, who is the next queen on the throne, and how their stories intertwine. It is incredible. There is magic, there is romance, there is intrigue and danger, and it's just amazing. I love the Seven Realms series with all of my heart. I am still working through the Shattered Realms series for reasons that if you've read it, you will know why I was so hesitant to start reading it, because events were spoiled for me before I started reading them. But I'm still working my way through. I'm about halfway through that series, and I am enjoying it. I'm just not enjoying it as much as I love the Seven Realms. Those are my top 5 fantasy recommendations from lesser-known authors or lesser-known series, and thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye!